Mark, many thanks for giving up your time to speak to ESF-Works today. Can you just start by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about your role here at NOMS?
Yeah, my name is Mark Nickson. I'm head of the NOMS Co-financing Organisation. Our main aim is to bid for European social funds and then use them funds to address the barriers offenders experiencing gaining employment.
NOMS is at the heart of work with offenders. What does the rehabilitation mean from your point of view?
The rehabilitation revolution to me means a dramatic change in the way we deal with offenders and how we address their offending behaviour. Traditionally, we've taken offenders and we've locked them up for the duration of their sentence and then let them out. And we haven't really addressed their offending behaviour during the time they've spent with us. What that means is that we're perpetuating the churn of offenders from prison into society and then back into prison when they re-offend. This affects society dramatically, both financially and emotionally. The two government green papers, Breaking the Cycle and Making Prison Work, has put skills and employment at the heart of reducing re-offending. This doesn't mean just getting people to sew mailbags or make number plates in prison. It's actually looking at the work that they're doing in prison, making sure it's meaningful work and it's actually work that's going to have a benefit to society when they're let out. We're looking at making links with employers in the community and making sure that we're actually providing offenders with the skills that are going to be useful to employers when they're released.
How does ESF play into that, given its role in employment and skills? What strategically is its role?
Well, the key objective of NOMS is reducing re-offending and helping ex-offenders get into employment contributes to that objective. Accessing the European social funds helps NOMS address the needs to the really hard to help offenders, the types of offenders that aren't really accessing the mainstream provision provided by the likes of DWP and the Skill Funding Agency, and allow them to either become more employable or actually enter the employment market.
How does ESF play into that, given its focus on employment and skills? What strategically is its role?
Yeah, the type of participant we deal with are the extremely hard to help cohort within the offender population, the type of people who have multiple barriers to employment and have very little opportunity to actually gain employment. They might have issues, have been unskilled, unqualified, drug, alcohol issues, behaviour problems, debt problems and accommodation issues. The type of problems where they have multiple people working with them all at the same time. Through our case management model, we make sure that we facilitate that work and make sure that the offenders can make sense of a chaotic life. Round one of NOMS CFO has just come to an end in 31st of December 2011, and by the end of the programme we'd worked with around about 40,000 offenders and got about 4,197 of them into employment.
And what does that mean in practice? What is the NOMS ESF programme achieving now, and is it achieving everything that you had hoped for it?
Yeah, the type of participants we work with, as I was saying, are the extremely hard to help individuals within the offender population. These are the people who've traditionally got multiple barriers to employment. It could be behavioural issues, drugs, alcohol issues, debt problems, accommodation problems. So the sort of things where multiple agencies could be working with them at one time. What we try and do is I make sure we've identified all them barriers and coordinate the work that's going on with that offender. Through our case management model, we make sure that all these barriers to employment are addressed and that the offender can make sense of their chaotic lives.
The second wave of NOMS ESF programmes, which began delivering earlier this year, have a particular focus on particular groups of people, such as sex offenders and people from traveller groups. What is the main thinking behind this part of the programme?
Well, it's always been our aim to work with the hard to help groups, and within the hard to help groups there's some extremely hard to help groups, as you're saying, like travellers, women working within the sex industries, people with mental health issues, etc. And in round two we're actually having small projects across the regions focusing on these particular areas. The idea is to make sure that these people are getting the provision that they need, but also that NOMS can learn from what we're doing and make sure that the learning from providing that provision is propagated across NOMS as a whole.
Offender-related work often gets bad press. It's easy to get headlines about being soft or forgetting the victims. How do you handle communications about the work that you support from here?
It's very easy to look at funding on offenders as rewarding crimes against society and rewarding offenders for doing something wrong. I think we've all seen the headlines that say that it's an easy target. However, I think a lot of the time what we don't realise is by spending money on offenders, we're actually addressing their reoffending behaviour, and by reducing reoffending, we're then reducing the impact on victims and on society financially as a whole. So we try and focus on that level. We try and focus on the plus size to society of spending this money and the positive effects it's going to have on reducing reoffending and on victims, or reduction of victims in the future.
We spoke with Bobby Cummins from Unlock last year, who I know that NOMS does a lot of work with. His view is very clearly that the most significant barriers to rehabilitation are the attitudes of employers in particular and the wider community in general. Notwithstanding all the work that you do with offenders, the attitudes on the other side of the equation are still there. What sort of impact does that have on the work that you do, and how do you overcome that?
I think it has a huge impact. I think no matter what other barriers an offender has, there's always that final barrier that the person sat opposite them in an interview has prejudices against offenders. And it's something that we do need to address. The Green Paper, Breaking the Cycle, suggested identifying key senior business leaders to champion the role and contribution of employees in rehabilitating offenders through skills development and work, both in prison and in the community. The Employer Forum for Reducing Reoffending was set up and it's chaired by James Timpson. And this brings together about 15 senior business leaders into a forum to try and put forward this idea. NOMS CFO is supporting this by helping the forum develop its communication strategy and to help increase participation in the forum by businesses across the country.
You've also been leading the way in involving social enterprises as partners in working with offenders. What have you learned so far about the potential for social enterprise?
Yes, we currently fund around about 30 pilots across England and looking at a whole range of models, from installing solar panels to giving advice to female offenders re-engaging with their families. I think one of the main aims for us is to encourage financial sustainability, that once the CFO comes to an end or other funding comes to an end, that the enterprise that we're supported is sustainable, can continue without continually looking for additional funding. I think the impact on offenders working within a social enterprise is huge as well. They're actually working in a genuine business environment and gaining all the skills that they can gain from that environment. The other initiative we've got is sustainable development. We have a sustainable development, which is a development champion who's looking at the green market and the green economy. And this isn't just looking at how many bits of paper we throw in the bin and making sure we switch the lights off. It's actually looking at where the developments are within the green economy, looking at where the jobs are going to be within the next 5 years, and making sure that's fed back to our providers and that we're providing the training that offenders will need to get into that economy.
You've recently had a call out for the development of new social enterprise consortia to take part in the ESF programme. Does this suggest that the sector is lacking capacity to deliver on what you'd like it to?
I don't think it's about capacity. I think it's more about our ability to tap into the expertise that social enterprises can provide us with, and also for social enterprises to access some of the larger contracts that the likes of NOMS and DWP are offering up at the moment. If you look at the prime provider contract model, a lot of the small social enterprises aren't large enough to actually come in as a prime provider and access them large contracts. However, by coming together and by bringing together all their expertise, they would be able to go for them larger contracts. We've called the process the more than the sum, because we're sure that a number of enterprises, each adding value to each other, could create a really compelling offer to one of them competitions.
Are there still ways in which providers from any background can get involved in the NOMS ESF? Is the programme fully committed, or are there still openings?
NOMS CFO operates a prime sub-provider contractor model. All our contracts have been let up until December 2014 with prime providers in place, and in most areas sub-providers in place as well. However, this doesn't mean that if an organisation has an innovative way of delivering interventions to offenders, they couldn't approach the prime provider and put forward that idea. We're always open to making small variations to contracts if it's something that's actually going to benefit the offenders. If we're successful in obtaining ESF funding for the 2014-2020 phase of ESF funding, then we will proceed in a similar manner of a prime provider market, ensuring that the money that we're giving to our primes is handed down fairly to our sub-providers.
Looking into your crystal ball, how do you think offender and employment work will unfold over the next few years?
I think one of the challenges we're going to have over the next few years is actually satisfying the localism agenda, so making sure that we're actually delivering to local authorities exactly what they require in that area. We do a lot of that now by engaging with local authorities and engaging with the regions to make sure that what we deliver is what is needed in that particular area, be it training, be it getting people into particular types of industry in that area. I think the other development would be the number of social enterprises that are beginning to get set up at the moment, but in the next few years will really become to the fore of delivering interventions for offenders. And again, that's part of our consortium building competition we've got at the moment, to try and bring them social enterprises together and get them into the sort of arrangements that will allow them to access for contracts we'll be letting in the future.
Where might the role be for ESF, for example, under the post-2014 programme?
I think we've always used ESF money to address the needs of offenders who normally fall through the net. It's the small percentage of people that can't access the mainstream at the moment, and without help never will be able to access the mainstream. So the type of people who come into prison, leave prison, reoffend, and then come back in. ESF money up to this point has been a good source of funding to address the needs of this particular cohort, and I see it being a continuing important source of funding to address the needs in the future.